Hi, and welcome to Global Student Voices, the podcast that brings you exciting stories and invaluable insights from students, educators, and thought leaders around the world. I'm your host, Coach Martin, with 30 years of experience in international education. Join us each time when we navigate the exciting journey between international secondary school and university. Let's get started. I'm very excited to have my guest today. It's Samir. Samir, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and help us get to know you a little bit.
So good to talk to you again, Scott. After a while, it's been a minute or two, but thanks for having me on your podcast. Lovely to always speak with you. So a little bit about myself for many who don't know me. I'm originally from Calcutta, India, and I currently live in Austin, Texas. I work at Apple, and I have been quite a few places in the last 20 plus years since I started college at Anderson University. So I've lived in Australia for a few years. I've lived in about 18 or 19 years now in the US. Multiple places, Indiana, Chicago, Northern California, Southern California, and now uh, here enjoying the Southern hospitality in Austin, Texas.
Yeah, you are truly have become a truly global citizen. When you went to college, you had never really been anywhere before, had you?
I had never been on a plane before I came to Anderson back in 2001, 2002. Yeah, see, I forget how long ago that was. Yeah, it's the first time I was on a plane. So yeah,
That's crazy, and it just opened up the doors for you and allowed you
yeah.
to shift and
No,
move and
absolutely.
meet people from all over and do all kinds of exciting things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is. I think my 4 years at Anderson were very, very, very formative for me. I don't know how best to explain it, but I actually, in a very weird way, I'm happy that I was not part of that whole Indian bubble that a lot of kids now who come get caught into, because you just stay within that own bubble and you don't get to explore. I mean, I was there, and I mean, we've spoken about this in the past. You got me involved in a lot of activities, but it just made me explore my, getting to know more people, to meet new people, different cultures. I mean, I had friends from many countries in Africa. I had friends from Nepal, a couple of folks from India, but South Korea. I mean, it was good to get that exposure. Um, I lived in a jock dorm just because I showed an interest in basketball and cricket. So that was a lot of fun. Being the 120-pound guy in a jock dorm, and my roommate was 258-pound linebacker. So, so that was a fun experience.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I was the director of international student services when you came to Anderson, and um, our philosophy in terms of student services was to bring all the international students, all the students who, what I would call global students now, all the students who came from various different living experiences, whether they were Americans like myself that grew up in Africa, or European that grew up in Asia, or like yourself, just Indian, just that,
Just
only
Indian.
that.
Just Indian,
Um,
yeah. Plain
and bringing
vanilla
that,
Indian.
yeah, and bringing that whole group together. And even as the group got larger, and some students maybe who shared some life experience would hang out together and want to
Yeah.
share um, their cultural experiences with the rest of us. I think that because we had this larger community,
Yeah.
well, two things. One, I think it obviously was value added for all of us in the group to have that world exposure. I think it also made us more impactful. I think you as students were more impactful on the broader campus
Yeah.
because you were seen as someone with a global perspective, not just
Yeah.
an isolated. perspective. What were some of the things as we think back about that, Samir? What were some of the things you think were particularly effective in bridging boundaries?
Oh, the thing that comes to my mind just anytime somebody asks me is the orientations, right? Of
Mm,
course, I had my own where I came a little later than most people, but then when every other year when the new class started to come and they would have that conversations with international students at AU to talk a little bit about who they are, where they're from. That's actually amazing because especially somebody from me coming from somewhere way out 11,000 miles away and having people just having to sit there and listen to me. That's for one, they had to do it, but then when we met on campus they would say, hey, I know you're from India, it kind of started to build that connection. You started to feel connected with the campus, with the community around. I also had funny stories where people would walk up to me and say, "You're the first brown person I've ever met in my life."
yeah,
So those were some interesting experiences, right? People asked me if I went to school on an elephant and stuff like that. So I mean, and I know some of our other folks from Africa got very interesting questions as well. If they lived in tree houses and stuff like that. So I mean,
right,
uh, to be honest, it was educational for them as well as for us as well. I mean, we were happy to share our experiences. And we still remember these stories 20 years on, right? So it's just it was amazing to get plugged into that, right? And share our experience, share our background, and then have the community kind of rally to accept that. And then we had that happen every year, and we had more people sharing their experiences from different parts of the world. We had a West Indian, the South Koreans, and everybody, right? We had Indian guys who grew up in Scotland and other parts of the world. So we
right.
had, it's just amazing to hear that.
Yeah, and I think having all those stories kind of shared under the same roof
Yeah,
gave people a really much more authentic view of how complex and um, interesting the world is.
yeah, yeah. I
That you
mean,
could
it just
have. I remember sitting at a table with three Indians, you from Calcutta, a student like as you mentioned who grew up in Scotland, and
yeah,
one who was born in Africa, um, and was dating this American girl from Japan, and like how does that happen, right?
yes,
And
it's amazing.
yeah, it is amazing. I also think that kind of required like the forced sharing, and
Yeah,
I know you guys didn't always love me at the moment, that
no,
I
no,
was forcing it, but I think that forced sharing, like you mentioned, that story where you shared, you're the first brown person I'd ever met.
yeah,
That student thought they'd met you, like because you
yeah,
were in front of them sharing,
correct,
they had a like an authentic relationship started. You had never met them, like they were walking up to
correct,
you as a complete stranger. Um,
correct. Yeah,
but because they had met you, it created this kind of familial, I think, very positive
yeah,
environment
absolutely.
in an
And
otherwise
it
pretty
breaks a
divided and ignorant world.
yeah, it breaks a lot of stereotypes. I mean, when I would tell people I know Rachel and Ross, and they're like, "Wait, what? How do you know that?" Right? When I would quote some scenes or some movies, captions from movies. I grew up watching a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. So when I would say I'll be back, everybody's like, "Wait, how do you know that?" So it broke quite a few stereotypes. I know that. I mean, maybe I don't know if it's still true 20 years on, but I think even in a certain way, even if not that extreme, there will be some stereotypes that will be broken always. So I think it's
Yeah,
it's it's
yeah. I mean, I
amazing
think
to get pushed.
absolutely, and regardless of our time, I mean, I think times have changed, but the more people there are, the more our brain kind of is forcing us to categorize and put people in boxes just because it's
Yeah.
overwhelming that everyone can be individual. And so our brain is
Yes.
just like fritzes out and then starts to try to package people.
Yeah.
Um, and this was kind of a depackaging experience. And I think for the students that, we started in those orientations, we started with international students sharing with each other their stories and kind of practicing that. We'd often invite roommates in to the conversation, kind of spread that group a little wider. Um, in our case, we got to meet with student leadership, school leadership, president, had you guys over for a
Yeah,
reception.
exactly. Yeah,
Um, and I think all of those things really broke down and created a place where, one, you felt like you belonged there, like
yeah, yeah.
this was your place. Um, and I always talked about orientation was so important because I wanted you guys to not only feel comfortable, like where your class was and how things worked, but I wanted international students, the global students, to be the actual leaders. Like people would come to know that, hey, if you don't know where to go, ask an international student, ask a global student, because
Yeah. They've had to
they know
figure it
everything.
out. They've done it. Yeah, they've figured it out. No, absolutely. It was uh, how to put it better. I mean, look, there a lot of folks come and they are in their own shell when they come from their own countries, right? Then you don't feel like you want to. So you need somebody like you who will, push people and say, hey, just share a little bit about yourself, right? You don't have to start from the day you were born, but share a little bit about you, and it helps. What that also did was I realized I had more in common with a second generation Indian who only lived in Trinidad and Tobago, and I connected with her from because we both worked in the same place. Then I had in common with the two other Indian guys.
Uh-huh.
It's like, wow, okay, really. That was she knew more about the culture. She was more into that traditional Indian culture than the other guys were, because they had a very
Yeah.
different upbringing, even in India, and that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Even with the
It's those
guys
mind,
from Nepal, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's those mind blowing moments where you're like, okay, I did not expect to have something in common with them. I did not expect to get
exactly.
on. Like, who would have ever predicted that you and your roommate would have hit it off,
100%.
right?
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
mean,
This is a little bit negative, but it's actually worth talking about this. When I was coming before I was coming, I was meeting all my friends back home, a week or two before I was leaving. So we had a nice party at a friend's house, and they all started talking, oh, you're going here. And then, hey, do you know who you're staying with? And I said, yes, he's a roommate, he's a black guy. And immediately everybody in the room was just like, oh, they're like, oh, they're like, oh, you got to be careful, we've heard this, not one person had been to America in their life, not
uh,
one person had met an American in their life, but everybody had this opinion that they were sharing with me about him, right? And I'll tell you, he's the sweetest guy you'll ever meet in your life. I mean he is, to this day, I'll tell you, whenever I talk to him, it's just like we left off 20 years ago. We never, and he's always happy, smiling through anything that happens in his life. He's always got a smile on his face, and he's always telling me, Stamir, it's gonna work out. Um, it's amazing, he turned out to be this real, I guess, blessing in a way. So
yeah.
just to go, right? I mean, stereotypes work the other way around as well. So
Yeah, and I think credit to you. You came in open, and you didn't take that negative
yeah,
feedback that you got from those friends in India, and you didn't
yeah,
close any doors. You came in and let the doors be open
absolutely.
or open them back up,
Yeah.
and the blessing that comes from that. And I think that's a huge lesson for all of us.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, it's the only thing is, when you come outside, experience, that's it. Be open to the experiences. You will learn so much, you'll enjoy so much, right? I mean, I don't speak to a lot of folks like every day or every week or something like that, but for some of these guys, when I connect with them, like the guy from Trinidad and Tobago, anytime there's a cricket tournament going on, and India is playing the West Indies, there's some playful banter going on there. The Cricket World Cup's on right now. It's in the US and Caribbean. So I'll be sending him a message soon, and then we'll have a little bit of a banter around it. So, it's stuff like this. It's just
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and it is absolutely amazing, and we have all those little pieces that came from the experience, and I meet students who've graduated from undergrad and can't list five people that they had a significant relationship with.
Yeah.
Um, because they were just so focused on their academics, and they didn't really get to know their roommate, or maybe they got one roommate their sophomore year they chose, and then that was the last.
Yeah.
They stayed together those years, and that was their group. And to
Yeah.
me, that's really sad because I think there's so much more to the
Yeah.
college experience than books. Like you can read books anywhere.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, I forget two of the other folks that I really I had a Bulgarian roommate with whom I still talk to all the time, and we talk to each other like we're homies, and then it's still even today, we when we connect, it's just like we were. Yes, we've been away for about 18, 19 years, but then you still remember, you go back and you talk about those friendly moments. Um, the other friend of mine, half Ukrainian, half Ugandan, grew up in Sweden, and he was like a real hot pot of culture. Uh, always fun having a conversation with him. So
Yeah,
just these experiences you will not get if you're just in India, or if you're here and you're just hanging out with Indians, or just hanging out with your own group. It's You miss out on a lot. You miss out on a lot.
yeah, I think that's really good advice. What other advice, like if you had a chance to talk to your, let's say you were talking to yourself as you were entering in, if you could go back and talk to yourself entering as a freshman at university, uh, would you have any advice for yourself, or would you do it the similar way?
I wouldn't change much. I wouldn't change much, to be honest. I was not. I enjoyed my 4 years there. Um, the only thing I regret a little bit was not spending that second year in the dorms as well.
Uh-huh.
That was the one that's the one thing that I always had, because just about a year, 2 semesters into, I started to really get along well with my roommate, had amazing chemistry with all of the guys on my floor, which I did not anticipate, to be honest, right? And I really wanted it to
Yeah.
continue, but whatever reasons couldn't do it, but would have loved to do that.
That's interesting. I've
Yeah.
actually heard that from a number of people. It might be one of the highest things, that the thing that's most frequently regretted is students regretting not spending more time in the dorm. I've
Yeah.
I've been advising that, but I didn't really have any data to back
Yeah.
it up. But it's good to, I
Yeah.
mean, I think you did college really well, Samir. I mean, I think when I look back on the folks and how they did their college experience, I think you got
Yeah.
good value out of your college
I did.
experience.
I I
But
I
it is
made.
interesting to
Yeah.
hear that
Yeah. No, for
many
me,
regret.
I missed it. Yeah, I would say yes, many regret, because I mean, also goes to from the highs I had when I just came, with being on the floor and connecting with all the guys, to being the only guy when I was most of the time at home, in my basement apartment in the second year. Was a bit, that soured my experience a little bit. But then the third year, I moved in with three
Mm,
other guys, and the third and fourth years were amazing. So I wouldn't change those, right? But I would certainly have wanted to have one more year in that dorm room, and continue to experience that
yeah.
that fun. That would be the only thing that I would say. But apart from that, um, I know I wasn't very honest in one of my classes where I didn't go, because I expected I'm just gonna breeze through it. That was a silly thing, but I took that class for granted. I shouldn't have. I know my advisor needed to get involved and talk to them and say, hey, he's gonna show up for the classes. That was I think my third or fourth year, one class where I was not very honest.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it was a theater class, and I just figured, everybody gets through it. You don't need to worry about it, and I just never went, and that was not right.
And you didn't get much out of it then, I'll bet.
That was me being closed off, to be honest.
Sure.
I would have gained a lot, if I were just a little bit more. If I were a little smarter, I would have just enjoyed it. I would have enjoyed it a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but I was just. It was at a time where I'd rather be at home and hang out with all the friends than go to the class. So I guess that was my, one. Sorry.
Hey there, GSV listeners. Before we dive back into our conversation, I wanted to take a moment to thank our incredible guests, the students, school officials, and thought leaders who inspire us with their stories and insights. As you're listening today, be thinking of ways that you can support the guests of this show. There are links in the descriptions with just some of the ways. I'm Coach Martin, your host and your partner in navigating the university journey. Whether you're exploring university options, preparing for admissions, or seeking support during your academic path, my books provide practical guidance and insights to empower your university success. Join me in individual coaching, group sessions, or courses designed to equip you for university life and beyond.
I am from Brazil, but I attended an American school in Indonesia for my secondary education. So you know my situation was really confusing and really scary. Coach Martin really understands global students, and he loves helping us out.
Again, thank you for listening. Explore the podcast description for links and resources and contacts discussed in today's episode. Visit www.theglobalstudentsolutions.com to learn more and embark on your journey toward university success. Now, let's return to our conversation. Well, let's get to, because you did do college well and you have such a fond experience, what are maybe some, if you had a younger brother or nephew or, somebody coming up and they were saying, okay, Samir, everybody says you had a good experience. You enjoyed your experience. How do I do that? What would you recommend for them?
Oh, very simple. Be open and, to experiences, join up for stuff to do. It might be difficult to start with, might be uncomfortable, not difficult, might be uncomfortable, but, try to step out of your comfort zone, because that's actually where you will start to learn and you will enjoy as well. That if you start to do that, that's what it is. Also, don't be afraid to not know if you don't if you don't know what to do. You have time
Yeah.
to figure it out, right? As long as, see, for me, what's worked for a long time in my life is I knew what I did not want to do. So it then helped me gravitate towards, or had me figure my steps out for what I did want to do. But there shouldn't be that added pressure of wanting to know what you want to do. That's okay. You have a little bit of time. You can figure it out. Don't be stressed about it. But yes, pay attention to the grades. The one thing that I did learn personally when I went to a Ball State or the AU is, if you're competing with for some of the very high jobs, a lot of times the GPA matters, right? So um, yeah, the Stanfords and the Harvard guys will be at a 3.89. Sometimes they're even 3.5 is compared. Now I'm looking at it from the other side, from who's employing people to some extent, right?
Right.
So if I see somebody from a Harvard or a Stanford with 3.5, 3.6, and I see somebody from a lower tier university at the same level, I'm actually gonna be a little bit, now my experiences are different. So I might equally weigh them and see what it is, but not a lot of people do that. A lot of other people would say, okay,
Yeah.
3.5 at Stanford is probably a 3 here in other universities. So, I just, yeah, it's the other way around actually. 3.5 and this
Yeah,
in a
it's
lower tier
comparable. Yeah,
university is about a 3. Yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
whole
So,
rigor and all those things, and not all employers do a lot of research into the where their employees come from. So
yeah.
putting your best, everything. It's like a cumulative exam in college, right?
Yeah.
Everything is cumulative. Everything adds on each other, and you can't go back and change any bits of the past. But you as you
Yeah.
move forward, just do your best,
Yeah.
right?
See, for those who come here and wish to continue through employment and stuff, they're about between 10 to 15 seconds is what a recruiter or a hiring manager spends on a resume, because they're looking for very specific things, right? So let's say you go through a recruiter and get to a hiring manager, or even at the recruiter level, they're looking, okay, undergrads, what did they do? Oh, okay, 3.1. Okay, yeah, that's a little low. That's it. They're looking for these pointers. So, while you love to have these experiences and enjoy it, the academic portion is definitely important. Uh, maybe whatever people may think about it, but that still matters. It still matters,
Yeah.
especially those who are seeking their first job, because that's one way that people see that, okay, this person is consistently at a higher level, right? So that's important. We should not lose track of that. Experiences and all are good, you will have that, but not to lose sight of why you're really there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, um, you know, it's okay to enjoy your job, but remember you still have
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. You have to do that. And like I said, that I learned it by going through some of the courses and realizing this isn't what I like to do, because I saw that immediately. My grades dipped, but stuff that I
Mm.
enjoyed, my grades were higher. So that's how I realized maybe this isn't what I want to do. And I had a little bit of time, so I could figure that out. And I think that liberal arts education was pretty good, because it exposed me to a lot of different areas. That was fun. I could never imagine taking astronomy. I loved that course. Love
Yeah.
that course. Yeah, so liberal arts gives you that fun little experience, and I mean that's something that people should actually look for in the first couple of years, right? Do something completely different, right? Take a world history course, to, do astronomy, or pick up a language, pick up a foreign language. I know you told me to pick up a foreign language. I remember that conversation. Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing. I
Yeah. And it
wanted to
just unlocks
take
different parts of
French.
your brains. Yeah.
Absolutely, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. These are things that, I don't think people think through it, but it helps a lot.
Yeah. 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 You're right. And people don't think through it. I mean,
Yeah.
my own experience, I went into college knowing exactly I was going to be a computer science major. I was going to go into technology. And I took my first computer science class and talked to the advisor. And by the end of my first semester, I knew I was on the wrong path. And I was so glad I was at a liberal arts school where
Yeah.
it was expected to explore.
Yeah.
Um, and where I had access. I think being in a smaller school also gave me access to the professors and allowed me to go in and
Yes.
meet with different advisors and people at the top of their field, and I could see,
Yeah.
oh, okay, and then I could talk to them about my personality and what would that look like in this
Yeah.
field, and they were all, I mean, professors at liberal arts schools are there, especially at smaller schools, they're there because they want student contact, and
Yeah.
so that's the huge big takeaway, big advantage of that
Yeah.
kind of
I don't
environment.
know. I don't know how you are with taking names, but one of my favorite things was the political science class I had with Dr. Nelson. Amazing,
Mm,
amazing guy, brilliant, brilliant mind. I was just in his class, and you'd learn so much about international politics. And the thing that I appreciated most about him was our some of our tests would be just an empty map of a
mm,
continent, and he'd say, fill in the countries. That's it. That is amazing. That's brilliant. That gets you to that awareness of what's around you, right? The world is
yeah.
not just US, Canada, and Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan. There is another world
Right.
after around, beyond that, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. I loved it. It was a little bit challenging within certain countries, with a lot of continents, a lot of countries in there. But Europe and Africa were difficult. But no, it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think those challenges make us make us stronger and make us better,
yeah.
and uh, and I think
It
that has a
also
long term impact.
exposed. Yeah, it also exposed me to having an interest in other things. I mean, we talk about this, but there are a lot of kids who are very focused. They know exactly what they want to do, and for them, a focused area is 100%. Yeah, do that. That's how their mind works.
Yeah.
But even then, I mean, just being exposed to the political science class, the astronomy class, I will uh, look take my phone and have a stargazing app, and I'll look it up, and I'm like, hey, yes, I know that. I've seen that. I've seen this spiral
Yeah.
galaxy, some time ago. It's it helps you start to your point earlier, right? Activate other parts of your brain that you would not use. It's very
Yeah.
useful. It's a very
Yeah.
useful life uh, uh, story or a talent, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's like having a toolbox with some extra tools in it. Um, and
Yes,
you
yes.
know what you said is absolutely true. There are some students who know exactly what they want to do, and they've done the work to know what
Yeah,
their strengths are and where their talents lie, and they're on a direct path to a
absolutely.
undergrad and a master's and a doctorate, and they know where they're going and they know the school that fits them. And that's why there's so many great schools around the world, is because we need a whole bunch of variety because we got a whole bunch of various people.
No, absolutely. I mean, both things work. I know that for a fact. But if you're not somebody who knows this is exactly what I want to do, that awareness of there are other types of colleges that are available as well that give you that experience, right? I mean, people generally don't understand that the liberal arts, oh, liberal arts, I don't know if that makes sense or not, but even within the liberal arts area, you can focus on the computer sciences or the international business or any information systems or those areas, right? I'm sure the curriculum has now expanded to machine learning and AI as well. I don't know, I've been
Right.
away from it for a while. But yeah, you will get these experiences. So for those who are not sure what they want to do, this is definitely an option. Definitely an
Yeah.
option. Not to, close your eyes and just, eh, not don't need to be that horse with the blinders on right now. It's
Right.
open the blinders. You have
Yeah.
an
See broader
opportunity.
and think critically and think bigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any for I mean we have in this audience there are students, and we've kind of spoken to students a little bit. There are school leaders and there are parents. Um, any words of wisdom for school leaders, both either at the secondary level in preparing their students for university, or at the university in terms of receiving um, global students to their school, that you'd want to share?
Very loaded question. Um,
I
I
know.
haven't had that. I haven't had that experience from the other side. But just going by my experience from a school perspective, a lot of times it's just left to the parents and the kids to figure out, right? From a school administration perspective. But a lot of times parents and kids don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for them to decide. I mean, my nephew is actually coming to do an AI program at IU Bloomington, and everybody is like, okay, he's got an admit in Bloomington, he's got an admit in Chicago. Where should he go? And I'll tell you one interesting question that my cousin asked me was, is it safe in Chicago?
Mm.
They don't know any
Yeah.
better, right? They don't know any better.
No,
So,
it's a legitimate
so
question.
yeah, but then they're not necessarily thinking about the academics or any of that, right? So people are
Right.
not very aware of things, right? I mean, yeah, the comparison was between the school in Chicago versus Bloomington. I said, yes, Bloomington has a better program. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It makes sense. And they were leaning towards Bloomington as well, but it was more from a safety perspective. So,
Mm.
leaving it up to the parents and the kids, not always the smartest options, because everybody's just flying blind, right? So as a school institution, if you have guidance counselors or if you have counselors that advise kids on higher education, having a link with somebody who knows the US education system and is able to guide them into, here are the different options for your kids. Because there were kids in my school who were, Scott, the smartest kids in the world, right?
Mm.
But they were smart from a book smart point of view. They could recite the whole book to you from front to back, but they didn't understand anything. And
Yeah.
some of them went to college because, hey, I know biology, I know this book front and back, both my parents are doctors, I'm gonna be a doctor. That guy is a music director in Bollywood today.
Oh wow.
He went to college and realized that's not for him.
Yeah.
So you hear so many of these stories, right? So the point is, if for the school administrators, if there is an opportunity to get some more insights and they can help the kids and help the parents, having seminars, having conversations with, bringing folks like you even, right, who's been in this
Yeah.
industry for 30 years, somebody like that to come and just talk about it and say, look, you know what you want to do. You want to get into AI, ML. You've been writing Python scripts the last 5 years. You want to do this. There are these options for you. But then, hey, you guys here, you're still not sure what you want to do. Here is how your strategy could be, right? So it's more,
Yeah.
it's a better experience, and I think everybody will be wiser about it, right? Everybody will get a better option to think about it rather than yes, I've heard of Harvard, Stanford, UC Berkeley, and these universities, but my son's not gonna make it. So hey, Rice University, is that a good university? Yes,
Yeah.
but they don't
Exactly.
know. But they
Yeah.
don't know, right? So
Yeah. I think that's
I
true. And
think
I
that,
think you're right. If schools if they don't have the budget for professional staff, or if their staff is limited, just in terms, because we're all limited,
yeah,
even the best guidance counselors can use outside perspective to come in and do
yeah,
seminars.
absolutely,
um, and you can bring in people that really um, offer alternative perspectives, and because
hmm,
there's such a wide range and we're so diverse as people. um,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's
I
huge.
mean, there
And
are
I think
thousands of
and I think
universities across
you're
America.
yeah, and what you've talked about in terms of giving yourself some grace if you don't know, or if your track isn't as clear as you'd like it to be. I think that's good wisdom for parents too.
Yes,
um,
absolutely, absolutely.
and I
It's
think
it.
that's one of the reasons that some students thrive, is because their parents give them grace and give them space to explore and um, try some things and see where their talents really lie.
Yeah. I mean, look, from my time, I'm dating myself a little bit. The biggest consideration was financial aid and, whether we know somebody there, right? And in my
Yeah.
case, that was check one, check two.
Yeah.
And the third check was I got a call from you. I didn't get a call from any other college any time. There was nothing. It was just very cold congratulations. But you actually made an international call to us and said, "Hey, welcome. We're looking forward to having you here."
Hmm.
So it was, that there was a personal touch associated with it, which we don't get everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
that was the added bonus, right? That was plus one.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, this university really cares and wants you to be here, right? So, but
Yeah. And I think
maybe considerations, yeah.
I think it's really important for universities who are receiving students to realize, yes, international students are really good for your bottom line, right?
Hmm.
These are students who help you as an institution be better at what you're trying to be. Your mission will be more easily attained by having
Yeah,
diverse students from different countries there. At the same time, it's on relationship. This is still
yeah,
relationship building, and good academics is still a relationship
yeah,
system.
absolutely.
It's not
No,
it's
absolutely.
not a business. If you run it like a business, well, even business is about relationships. You do
Yeah,
business with people you like, um,
yeah,
and that's true for education, and that's a good lesson for folks. This is not just a number or a quota or whatever.
yeah,
These are real people who are investing in your institution, and you need to invest
absolutely.
personally in theirs as well.
Yeah, like,
Well,
makes
any
sense.
last thoughts, Samira? We're kind of running out of time here. Sadly, I feel
No,
like we could talk for hours.
I know. No, I mean, just enjoy for the students, enjoy the experience. As nerve-wracking it is to apply to a foreign university and get accepted and not know what's coming up. Enjoy that process. Have have a little bit of excitement in you, and build up that excitement as you get to the new place. Be open to new experiences, and get uncomfortable. I think
Yeah.
that's the key. get uncomfortable. Be ready to be uncomfortable and get uncomfortable, because it's going to be a lot of fun right after that. So
Yeah.
that's something for the kids, for the schools and the parents. You are the support for the kids. These are 17, 18-year-olds. They don't know what they're doing. They really don't. I was there. I knew I was there once as well. All of us were there. Most of us didn't have any idea what we were doing. We just had an idea. We want to get out of home and get away and be independent. So it's our job to give them the right tools to succeed.
Yeah. That's good advice. Samir, thank you so much for being on. For
Absolutely.
those of you listening in, thank you for tuning into this episode of Global Student Voices. If you found it valuable, please share it with your friends and family. Subscribe to our podcast. Leave a review and follow us on social media for more updates and inspiring content. Join us next week for more stories and insight from the world of international education. Until then, be brave, take a risk, and keep exploring.
So thanks, God.
Thanks for tuning into Global Student Voices. We're committed to bringing you the best advice and to share stories from global students and educators. We need your help. Make sure you subscribe, share, rate, and review our podcast. Follow us on social media for more updates, and we'll see you next time. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.